Hello and welcome to episode 175 of the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I'm your tame Foundry author, Dragoon1701, and with me is Greendragoon and the ghost versions of Markhawkman and DuncanIdaho because they both crashed while trying to load this Foundry mission, so they're dead.
Yes,
dead
very
to
dead.
Dead to us anyway.
Yes, we are now haunting.
That's right. My Foundry missions have power over your logins.
Yes, something like that. Because this happened to us the last time we tried to all load into a Foundry mission, didn't it?
Yeah, well, it happened with me.
Yeah. It's always you for some reason.
I think it's just because I'm trying to join in with you guys. So it's like missions that are still in review might not be that stable when it comes to teaming. But we can look into this further later.
Yeah, it's very strange. Anyway, what we're going to do tonight, among several things, is show off the intro to our 26th century mission intro, the intro to the intro, because we've been trying to thread this needle of how do you make a mission for both people who want to RP as 26th century captains and people who want to be, 25th century time travelers. So,
yes.
In a minute, Dragoon is going to run us through his solution to that particular problem. But we do have some news first. First thing is StarbaseUGC has returned. They got the website back up. I think they are still working on it. It's a work in progress, but the website is back up, which is fantastic.
Yay!
So we all are hoping for some content there, and obviously some of us may help with that. So good stuff. We are also prepping our own website. Dragoon, I think, showed off a beta version of that. So
yeah,
we'll have that, and we'll have lots of cross-linking between the two, and with FoundryMissions.com as well. It's a nice library of missions that people can add their own to or search. The other bit...
There's also a Facebook group that certain people set up for Foundry authors to discuss missions on and stuff like that.
Yes.
Although it usually gets used more for Foundry news than actual mission discussion, though.
We'll make sure that we have links to that as well. Couple other bits of news. I was able, with the help of Maria Russo, or Zeronius Rex, as we like to call her, to get Purity 6 back up.
Hey.
There was an issue where she couldn't get into it on her end because she thought maybe her tool that she uses to look at the missions couldn't see an unpublished mission. So I had to give her the ST code, and so it was a back and forth, and she was able to get that back up for us. So the entire Purity series is back up in the Spotlight menu for everybody to play.
Yay!
Definitely.
I know lots of people had been asking about that. So
Legionimith will be informed.
Yes, because I know they want to play it. I believe they've played the rest of them, haven't they?
They've played them. They've played them all, and they've hit most of the major Foundry authors. You've so far been spared, so we will endeavor to change that.
Oh no! They did a mission of mine.
Oh yeah, they did Under Gray Skies. That's right.
And that was a fun playthrough to watch. So, the other bit of news, which is my favorite bit of news from the week, is the Kobayashi Maru is in the Foundry. It's in the Costume Creator.
Yes, apparently editable.
Yes, we will show off that a little bit later in the stream.
Yeah, and last bit of news. Ambassador Kael mentioned offhand on yesterday's 10 Forward Weekly that we may have another Spotlight soon. So stay tuned for that.
He was also asking us some questions, wasn't he? You were listening. I was not able to listen. So
I wasn't really able to hear him around that point, so he may have asked us some stuff, but I just kind of don't know. I might have to just go back and rewatch that part. I do know that he mentioned offhand that we might be getting out of the spotlight soon, so that'll be really cool. He was kind of mentioning, I heard him talking about, like, there's just a lot of, cool stuff for the KDF. And, I don't know. I shot him a little bit later in the stream when he was running Klingon Academy, and that's basically all I got from last night's episode. I was going with Bordicus there, because they had a really nice talk about adding, just the process of adding different systems in. But as the Foundry goes, just keep making more cool stuff. And, yeah, we'll see what he thinks of 26th Century Anthology. Should be fun.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get some more of him and Zero on 10 Forward Weekly, giving us wonderful renditions of Foundry missions.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's check out this mission that Dragoon has created for us, or this first map anyway. So take it away, Green Dragoon.
All right. So this is just a prototype. This isn't like final dialogue or anything, but I kind of wanted to try and build it in such a way that it can work for both 25th and 26th century. And so to start out, it actually kind of explains, hey, you've got this option of playing this as either a 26th century captain or a captain from 2410. And so I'm actually going to start off with demoing the 2410 version. Fleet Admiral, we were picking up something on the area, but there's a lot of stray chronotons. Perhaps we could use an inverse tachyimpulse to narrow down the source. And I apologize for the horrendous spelling and typos and missing bridge officer faces. I did only build this over this week.
Yeah. Now, are we going to turn this into the mission?
Or possibly. Are you just, we could certainly build it out.
Yeah, because I was Dragoon was talking about making it. Now, you've made significant chunks of it. So.
No, I wasn't going to make it myself, no.
Oh, okay.
Not on my account,
All right.
We were going to essentially have Dragoon build it because we've had him building maps for it and stuff like that.
Okay.
All right, so that did it. I am detecting what appears to be a warp signature on the far side of the fractured moon. All right, take us in.
Okay, the rest of us here are going to AFK while Dragoon directs our little movie here.
All right, so you'll see as you're approaching here, we've actually got a scene set up here with a damaged Vorgon cruiser and a very ominous-looking temporal rift. This is it, sir. It looks like a ship. Yes, sir. Vorgon, but from the looks of it, what's it doing here? We'll need to perform a detailed scan to determine what happened to her. Get so. I'm detecting extensive damage consistent with Starfleet phaser fire. It looks like they were engaged in a firefight with a Starfleet vessel and attempted to flee using their temporal drive. However, their drive failed mid-jump and they ended up here. Sir, I'm detecting ongoing weapons fire on the other side of the temporal rift. The battle is still going on. It definitely looks like the Vorgons are engaged in hostilities with another Federation ship. Can we tell where the rift leads? It's difficult to say for sure. Maybe 100 years in the future. Choice, we can gun-ho or not gun-ho. Go be gun-ho. Fleet Admiral, I'm picking up a distress signal from the... No, apologize for the stand-in for a Captain Dax. I didn't have time to follow her out. But we get the distress call. Signal's breaking up. Do we help them? We have no choice. Because we need the mission to move forward.
One question I thought of while I was looking at this is which moon asset is this? Because I was looking at I realized that it doesn't seem like a cue ball the way most of them do. It actually seems to have a lumpy texture.
Yeah,
slightly.
It's a fractured planet. It's not in the list of class D moons. It's towards the bottom.
Oh, so it
It's
only
got a big
looks
it's got a big
whole
chunk
from
out
the
of one side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, that might be coming up in 2 of my missions.
All
It's
systems
something,
ready,
Alrighty.
sir.
it's something a lot of us use.
Yeah.
Prepare for temporal displacement.
'Cause, yeah, Horient was saying a lot of fractured moons these days.
We're all heading to the next map.
Oh, we are?
Decline for the moment because
Oh, crap. Decline.
Oops, that was
we
too
actually
late.
have to leave and come back.
Okay, so
because-
essentially that was the path of the 2409 officer, 2410.
Yeah.
Well, just to let you guys know to drop the mission once we're done, because otherwise we'll just speed past.
Yeah, we'll just end up back in the.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So
Alright,
that
so-
once you do that map transition, it will take you to the 26th century.
yeah.
Yep.
And that was actually that seemed really effective. So
Yeah,
it wasn't very long, and we want to keep this mission fairly short.
yeah. And even though it was basically just go to one planet, then have one dialogue, just to make it work, and it does seem like it's an acceptable use of a map because we do have the branching paths. We want to keep the complication down. So
And as you'll see in a sec here, there's differences to how things play out if you're from the 26th century.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and restart. And we've got the same mission as before. This time we're going to pick, we're from the 26th century. And so we got Fleet Admiral detecting an anomalous reading, but it's being scattered. They may be able to clear up the interference by performing a resonance scan. And I changed it to interference scan and... track no babble. I'm picking up some kind of distortion field from the fractured moon. I recommend we move in for a better look. Okay, so yeah, in this we're kind of being headed to the same place we were before, but this time the what we're picking up is different. And so now instead of a damaged foregone ship, we've got this anomaly that we're picking up.
I do like the.
Got the what?
Oh, I was just going to wait for the dialogue. I do like the fact that you have the destroyed moon. It's already produced a ring, so it sort of seems like it's a very active system, just in what's implied by the scenery.
It's a nice looking little space map there.
I probably will change the backdrop. I don't know that I like the backdrop that much.
It kind of works with the coloration. I mean, yeah, so you could change it up a little bit. If it's a custom backdrop, add more stars. Like just one of the star layer props.
Well, the trick is going to be that I want to have multiple different space maps on this one map, so we don't have to do any map transitions.
Oh, okay.
So I got to keep
full.
I got to have to keep it generic enough that it works for all 3 locations.
Yeah. So if you just do a generic, just something that has maybe a little bit of a nebula, but at the same time still seems like it could potentially be something seen in Sol, then yeah, I think that would work out just fine.
Okay, so this is it, sir. What can you tell me? I'm detecting something. It's almost like an old-style Romulan cloak. Whatever it is, it doesn't seem to be calibrated correctly. I'm detecting tachyon emissions. I believe that if we emit an anti-proton scan, we can expose whatever it is. Perform the anti-proton scan. Sir, it's a Vorgon fleet. The lead ship is hailing us. And my stand-in for a Vorgon because I didn't have time to make a Vorgon. You're the one from the Battle of Procyon 5. Without you, we would have won that engagement. And again, here you are interfering with our plans. Violence of Federation space. You will not stop us. You have denied us for the last time. You may have stopped our plans to obtain the Taksu Top before, but we now have our own weapon capable of inflicting the same destruction. Can't, sir, they've closed the channel. Several ships are arming weapons. Raise shields. Alright, so some of the ships have warped away. Others are... battle others.
Or Dragoon getting confused by his own dialogue.
I'm confused.
It exploded.
Yeah. They seemed a lot harder in the Foundry.
Well, yeah. I mean, you didn't have like another scimitar just sitting by with an anti-proton build.
Are you using a level 1 character with trash gear?
It
Okay,
still
so it
scales. Yeah, but yeah.
Scaling doesn't necessarily work smoothly.
No, but
Okay,
You
looks like I haven't set up past this point. So
If things are meant to work at a certain level, they don't scale down well.
yeah. So anyway, though.
Certainly.
but yeah, the idea from here would be that you would chase after the Vorgon fleet that left, and then you would more or less end up kind of in the same area in basically a battle with the Vorgons to try and stop them from using their weapon in Seoul. There'd be a couple of variations, but that kind of gives you the gist of what I'm going for here, with having the two different scenarios that kind of play out a little differently depending on what you choose.
But they generally end up in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had thought about taking an extra level, and like in the 25th century, the moon is whole, but in the 26th century, it's broken up. But I figured that
kind of funny.
would be funny, but it would be a lot more work, and it would be kind of lost on most people.
Probably.
We know.
It's just window dressing anyway.
Yeah, and this does look very dynamic, so I think it's a better look than just gas giant plus standard moon.
That sort of thing you were talking about would only really be a good thing to put in if people had an actual reason to see both versions of it. If they only play one version of it, then it, like you said, it'd be completely lost on them.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, now we can map transition into the next map.
Whee!
So from there, the mission goes to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So what's going to happen is the final plan is that it's going to start out here in the, was it Timbura?
Geneva.
Teneba.
Tenebia.
Tenebia. So it starts on Tenebia. You do an in-map warp to near Seoul, near the star. You battle the Vorgons. You fail to stop their attack on the Seoul star, and then from there you do another in-map warp to what's going to be here, which is our what I'm calling faux Earth. Because
that works as faux Earth. I mean, it's far enough away that you can't. Yeah, that's fine.
Because we don't have specifically an Earth planet that we can put down, so
It's upside down, and then we're looking at Eurasia.
there is no upside down in space.
Whatever you need to tell yourself to pretend that it's Earth.
Yeah. I think this totally works fine. And it also allows us, because we will have to make Earth later.
Yes.
Because we have to find it using a custom
someday.
Yeah,
someday
unless
we'll
we want to
find
do we find Earth, but it's now a Class K.
I'd rather not.
that would be dark.
So the good news is that a debate that you and I, Duncan, had earlier this week on Twitter has been solved for us in the fact that we can not get close to Earth because it's not really Earth. So we now have to have the shield generators far away from Earth, which means
you can have all of the action take place out here, and you can see Earth off the distance. You can see ESD off in the distance.
Yeah, and I'll say that I'm kind of glad that the generators are far away, because if you put these close to Earth, this would look exactly like a
look ridiculously huge.
This would look exactly like no. This would just look exactly like an upcoming AEI mission.
But we wanted him further back anyway, because we wanted this shield that we came up with to encompass the Earth, the Moon, and the SD.
Yeah, and also kind of give once the Earth gets transported, they have a little bit of an infrastructure, so we can actually tell a little bit more of a story with the survivors, because they might have had ships and shipyards to get transported with them.
Yeah.
Whenever we get around to that.
I had originally wanted to destroy the moon, because then we can come back and see the moon destroyed but no Earth, and what happened to the Earth? But Duncan was like, no, don't destroy the moon. And
I want the moon.
Yeah.
Can't blow up the moon. It's gonna stay forever.
Actually, eventually it'll leave us.
From our from our thread on the forums, we got people who want to do something with the moon and do something with Earth space dock. So,
Okay. So at this point,
accommodate them and send it with them to Centaurus.
yeah. But having to build this far away from Earth basically made the debate a moot point because now we have to build way out here near the moon's orbit.
Yeah,
so the
and
moon
it's
is
also
safe.
and it's also going to allow us to play around a little bit with force perspective to get an effect that, unless we're basically just going to look the opposite direction then look back with another objective, but it gives us a little bit more options to play with.
In real life, if
making
you're
Earth
on
go
this side of the moon, the Earth is quite a bit smaller.
Yeah.
True.
I was
That's
also
okay.
too. It's
The
just like when it's
stow scale is way out the window, so no big deal.
yeah. Also, I don't know like how you took to the idea, but I was kind of thinking just for like making this a non-empty space map when we get back. What about just keeping the shield generators and everything in them got worked?
I mean, that could work. I would love to show a like a damaged version of the shield generators, but we don't have any of these models. So I'm not quite sure.
You could fake it by adding little like cloud things sticking out of the
shield. Single nebulas
Oh,
at certain points to
show
that
little the debris fields around them.
Yeah, so you could do debris fields and single nebulas.
Okay.
Isn't there one of those like green gas jet things you can place on a space map too?
You could do it with comets. That's as far as I know.
Stick comets inside these.
Yeah, and then
it'll
that looks
obscure
like
the comet part to see the tail.
Yeah, and that looks like I'm using that as an effect for a particle stream in an upcoming mission.
Actually, you know what? To show that they're active, what you could do is use the comets, put the comets inside the big superstructure of those things, and point the tails inward. It shows that they're on and generating that shield.
Or you could do two comets placed on top of each other, and then two comets pointing to the next shield generator.
Yeah.
Or one on one side, one on the other side.
Pointing to the side.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, certainly we could have some fun. In fact, maybe we could stick them like right in the this little gap here in the middle.
Yeah.
So that it looks like it's like an energy emitter of some kind.
Yeah. Or if that happens to not look so good, we could also do the same thing in the bodies. So it would just look like the station's projecting something, just in case two comets laid on top of each other. If for whatever reason that looks weird, we got some other options. So there would be like two streams coming out, like a set of streams coming out from the top and a set of streams coming out from the bottom.
I still think my favorite use for the comet prop I ever came up with was to use it to add ambiance to a ground map. Because the comet tail is one of the few props we have that will actually create a wind effect on a ground map.
I gotta remember that, because I've seen a mission recently that used a comet on a ground map, but it is highly not a recommended use for a comet on the ground map. It's basically next to you, and the dialogue was, "Look, there's Halley's Comet." It's 5 feet away. This was an exceptional mission, and I've already recommended to Legion of Myth, and if they don't get around to it, we're going to have to play it.
In the one I did, which you can't look at because it was that one that still has a major map issue, but what I did with it was I hid the comet head behind a wall so that the tail of the comet was drifting through a building. So that whenever you were inside the building, it had this effect like a wind was blowing clouds through the building. The idea I was working with is that the building had been damaged recently, and the environmental controls were malfunctioning.
That's a really good use.
Well, see, this was Beta Rana Station, and if you remember how those pictures I posted of it looked like the space station had gotten cooked in a solar flare.
Oh yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I think this is a really great space map, really great perspective.
We've got a good start.
Like the line on here. So yeah, I think this is. We really got something, and even if this had to be like a map transition between these two maps, it's going to be a relatively short mission. So I think if it comes to being a simpler build to have Tenebia and Earth as 2 separate maps, I think that would work fine. Just to get, like, if that happens to make the job any easier.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say it's obviously trying to manage multiple space maps on the same build is more of a challenge, but at the same time, none of these 3 maps are like super complex.
Yeah.
I mean, Tenebia is probably the most complex. Sol is going to be like super easy. I mean, it's just like whatever we can find for a gas giant and a bunch of nebula overlaid on it, or whatever we can find to make a sun.
Yeah, and right now you've got 10 assets on here, so
yeah, so it's not like
triggers.
Working out the positioning is by far harder than working out the or getting the actual transition to work.
Yeah, so yeah, it looks good. And I'm gonna ram the moon.
And the plus side of doing this all in one map is that I can carry forward the 25th century, 26th century choice.
So you don't have to repeat like another choice at the start of this one. So yeah, that makes it real seamless. Cool.
Once you get to the point where the Vorgons actually do the thing that they're going to do to the sun, they are, excuse me. Oh, sorry about that. I had to go close my door. Yeah, once they get to the point where they're past the Vorgons doing their thing, the mission pretty much flows the same thing, and I'm not too worried about the branching after that point, except for the very end. I did want to do a little something there, but beyond that,
yeah, it's all very doable. Yeah, I think for authors now, it would just be make sure that we get the intro dialogues into Dragoon. I'm still working on them. And all screenshots, all sliders, and I'm still working on the uniforms too. I've had additional projects this week.
Somebody also wants to put me to making a Vorgon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, can you give that a shot?
I mean, I gave you that video, didn't
I? Did you?
If not, I can give you the sliders because I made one for my. When you guys informed us that the Nakul Acheron chip was very cheap on the exchange, I went and bought one, and I made myself a Temporal Axis of Evil crew.
Yeah. That's when I drew that one picture of my Vomp and the 2 Acheron ships as arms and a Megazord.
But in any case, I made a Vorgon for that. I went and found somebody had made a video on essentially how to make one. It requires some certainly creative use of the assets that we have available. So, but it can be done, and it's reasonably good looking. So,
I should start doing that on YouTube. Like just how to do certain characters, because yeah, that would be useful.
Yeah. The most complicated thing I've done on YouTube is doing short demos of various things in games. Like this week, I did 2 videos on how to beat the mission in Champions Online called For Malvenum.
I was going to upload a video of my very first multiplayer round in Star Trek Bridge Crew, but the audio wasn't very good. So, so unfortunately, I can't. So you guys will not be able to see me doing really badly at the Helm console. So.
You know, uploaded something where you were doing pretty badly.
that was just a single player.
Yeah, it kind of seems like the ultimate accomplishment of doing Starfleet, the Bridge Crew well, is making it look like you're not playing the game, and that it's just scripted. So it's like I need to get to the point of being competent.
Yes,
and being seamless, and not making it look like I'm one of the Thunderbirds.
Well, I mean, I've seen videos on YouTube of people playing it. I mean, one of them was a channel called Outside Xbox. They did a play of it, and that one was, like you said, it was hilarious because of the fact that they hadn't practiced the game, so they spent half of the thing trying to figure out how to make the ship controls work.
And that was a little part of it because I had not played the Helm before much, other than some of the tutorials. But we were in with a group that some of the other ones hadn't played Helm either, so I got stuck with it.
Slap puppet hands on the console. Come on, Marionette. Do your magic.
It's a little bit like that.
I have to walk across the bridge.
Unfortunately, there's no walking. That would be awesome if there was walking.
Yeah, and you do that the certain puppet walk.
Yeah, where you just sort of bounce and your legs just kind of swing.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great if they added like little like feet, basically things you strap to your ankles to get the full VR experience. So you're sitting in your chair, you got you got your hand controllers, and you got your feet controllers, and you got to use them in tandem. So it's basically patting the top of your head and rubbing your stomach at the same time, except much worse.
Well, there was that one idea someone came up with a long time ago for a stupidly complicated VR setup where you're basically attached to a gimbal, so that you can actually like flip upside down and stuff in the VR environment and simulate walking and all sorts of other things.
I'd be totally down for that.
I've seen one where it's like you're on a multi-directional treadmill, so you can walk in any direction. And obviously you're not really moving in place; you're just sort of walking in place.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, I don't have that set up. So
yeah, I'd totally be down for just something like more elaborate than that. It's just like I had a Virtual Boy, so the over-the-eye headset is still something that I have reservations about because I was there, man.
I would have reservations about many things if I owned a Virtual Boy.
Yeah,
I've heard stories of how headache-inducing the Virtual Boy actually was.
I actually didn't have that much of a problem with it, except when I tried to play it in the car once, because it was battery. You could use it on battery power, so I tried to do. Yeah, it was. I tried to do. Well, we had only one game. It was the tennis game, and that was actually pretty fun. There's also a Wario one, but that was just obtuse for me. I wasn't able to get that far on that when I was a kid, but I did try to do the Mario Tennis on a car ride, and I don't think I've been I think I reached the maximum point of being car sick without actually throwing up. It was it was fine for a minute, then all of a sudden it's just like, oh my god.
Yeah, I had a cousin who had one, and I got to play a bit of the tennis one and then the Wario one. I guess the Wario one was a little easier for me because I had just beaten the Game Boy version. So
I had that and beat it too. And I couldn't get that far in the Virtual Boy one. I don't know why. For me, it's just like, I don't quite get this one. I got the other one just fine.
It was like the one on Game Boy, except with like background and foreground layers.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just don't know. Like that one, I was just like, eh. But yeah, I played the tennis one. I still got the. I now have the song, like the background songs for that, stuck in my head.
Sounds perfectly normal.
All right. So back to Star Trek Online. I have to pull out my on topic whip and whip you guys back into shape.
I mean, this isn't the podcast dedicated exclusively to the Virtual Boy.
No, that would be the Virtual Boy Roundtable. That's recording next door right as we speak.
Okay. So anyway, though.
So obviously, Dragoon has been working on the prototyping here, our 26th century intro mission. So Duncan, what have you been working on?
I should probably send screenshots. I forgot to do that this week. I've been still working at how to basically write my 26th Century Anthology mission, and I've kind of, I'm pretty settled on the player character now. I'm going to do a Klingon, and that I've got no problems with right now. So I think I'm pretty well set up for that. But now with that in mind, I've got a completely different idea for what to do for primary characters. So what I've done, and I'll talk about this while characters are being sent over. So I'm sending 4 screenshots over on Skype, and yeah, it's just a rotation of characters I'm thinking about for 26th Century as the mains. But what I've done with this one is really trying to focus on character building, because I've got the opportunity to do this on this project, of kind of getting into the characters, why they're involved, and getting backstories that will and motivations that will directly involve them with the plot of the mission. So they'll have a stake in this too. So before I was thinking about a plot, and it's like, well, the main characters are there, but they're just kind of there. They don't really have a great personal stake. But now I'm just working on plot lines. It's like, okay, these guys are going to have personal involvements in the mission. So, which is basically just saying they're going to be a part of the story, which is just good storytelling. So the first thing I did was basically set up the 2 mains. So a Romulan officer, probably tactical in background, but I might make him science, or tactical/science. A Vulcan science officer. I'm leaning towards a male Klingon, but I might flip that around to a female Klingon just to see how the group dynamics work out with that one. And then I've also got Pym for comic relief. Yeah. So we've got the Vulcan science officer in blue, Romulan in sort of gray and orange, the Klingon in red, and then Pym, who's a Romulan, but I might make him Fed, because that would be funnier. So yeah, so the backstory on the Vulcan and the Romulan is that they've basically been part of a joint sort of exploration operation. He's just standard Republic officer. She was a Vulcan who was born on Earth to Vulcan parents and basically just grew up there. So just sort of highlighting cultural changes on Earth and sort of making it more of a getting characters involved with a very personal reason for wanting to find Earth again without them just being humans. Because I think for me that felt a little too easy. So I have a Vulcan who was raised on Earth, very Earth culture oriented. But as part of this joint exploration crew, before the events of our anthology mission, there's an accident. She gets contaminated by an unknown something, and she's only got a year to live. And in the anthology, Earth is lost, her parents with it. So basically, she's running against the clock to try to just find Earth again, just to know Dad's safe and everything's going to be all right. That's her involvement. The Romulan guy is just trying to keep everything together. He's got a relationship with her. He's just trying to hold on, maybe find a cure. Federation doctors basically say this is just beyond us. And
this is your Vulcan?
The Vulcan is the female in blue.
Okay, but I mean, this is your Vulcan is the character that's dying, right?
Yeah, the Vulcan is the character who's dying.
What was that disease that Tuvok had in the left?
For plot reasons, it's going to be an unknown something that another species might know something about. So
I was going to say because they had that one disease that Tuvok was suffering.
Yeah,
that can only be cured by blood relation.
That could be something, but the way I want to involve it,
because then it would be tied directly to her finding her parents. Her closest blood relations.
The thing is, because I don't necessarily know if I'll be able to finish that story off, I've written it so far, because I put out a short story, so I kind of made a few decisions already. I made it something that will become involved in my side mission, rather than the final mission. Because I felt she had enough personal stake there, and there's another angle to getting these people involved with this mission in particular that I'm making a few choices to go that way. The mind, Tuvok's condition would be really good, and I'll definitely give that one some more thought. But for now, it's just kind of planning on it's going to be something another species knows about. Because that will give them...
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I was just going to say, just because if it's something that this species in particular knows about and may maybe find them, that gives them leverage over the team. And that plays into the mission and some moral choices that occur along the way.
Well, one thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about various races and differing reasons for wanting to find Earth was that character Simon Tarsus from TNG. Obviously, your character would be in a different position than Simon Tarsus was, so they wouldn't feel quite the same way. But if you write a character who's basically like a Romulan Republic character, you could have them as being like kind of like him, but without the whole we hate you because you're Romulan aspect.
Now, who is Simon Tarsus again?
He's a half Romulan from the episode.
Oh, Drumhead. Okay.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
He enlisted in Starfleet, and then people found out that he was Romulan and not Vulcan.
Yeah. Actually, in Starfleet security, I've already got a Romulan refugee who grew up in the Federation in Starfleet. So I wasn't planning on having the Romulan. I could actually put into the Fed, but for now, I kind of wanted him to be the sort of the Vulcan representative.
We actually in the characters that everybody suggested for our command crews, we have quite a lot of mixed race people. So I think it's going to be less of an issue in the 26th century.
Well, you remember that line that Phlox said in Enterprise?
Oh, yeah.
About how in the future, eventually it gets to the point where being an interspecies hybrid is...
pretty normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember Caldano?
Yes, that guy.
Yeah. Was only part Lucari.
Yeah. Well, remember, he's Crispy Guy they found, and Phlox was actually talking about.
Or was he actually talking about that?
He was scanning the body they found in the time ship.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, well, what Phlox had to say about him, though, is that it was part human, part Torellian, part I don't know what. That was basically what Phlox said. Oh, yeah, it was also part Vulcan.
And we could actually fill in the I don't know what. It's like, hey, he's talking about the Lucari in Star Trek Online.
Yeah.
So at any rate, though, so the sort of the three main characters I was really thinking about, the Romulan, the Vulcan, and the Klingon, to sort of like be able to highlight changes that's going on in the Klingon Empire, and to sort of give a counterpoint on the view of death from the other two. So he's kind of got a little bit of a different take on it. He or she, because I might like the idea as a veteran, sort of warrior, sort of, just more cultural and maybe a little bit more scientific. So the Klingon's going to be attached, and then Pym, I might just throw in there to lighten it up, because he's pretty good character spackle. And if people don't know who Pym is, he's from the AEI mission Trident and various cameos in Starfleet Security. So anyway, this is what I've been working on this week. No mission build, like map building or anything else like that. Just trying to focus on getting the characters right for 26th century.
All right. I haven't gotten anything done because I've had quite a busy week. So that just leaves you, Mark. Have you gotten any work done in the Foundry lately?
I keep wanting to do stuff in Foundry, but I end up grinding Sumpec instead.
Yeah, that's where my free time's been going. So
only 2 characters.
I'm only doing 26 characters.
Oh dear God!
Actually, no, wait. It's only 24. Sorry.
Oh, poor man.
That makes it all better.
Yeah. This nice Labor Day weekend is going to help because I can, on the weekends I can easily run through everybody.
Just sit down,
and then only need 2 more runs each. It'll be good.
You're actually a little bit further ahead than me because I had to kind of start late once I found out what exactly we were trying to earn here. So I've got 4 more to do.
Mm-hmm. One thing I really wonder about the Sumpec thing is that, like all pulse waves, the primary damage falls off with range. I'm guessing that the secondary damage effect doesn't, though.
You'd have to test it and find out.
Yes, I will. soon. Yeah, because well, what the Sunpeg thing does is that when it hits the enemy, it creates this like electrical spark effect that does an additional amount of damage. That secondary damage is actually a reasonably large percentage of the primary weapon damage, so it's not weak. Oh well.
All right, let's see. Dragoon, you got a mission review for us.
Yeah, Duncan and I kind of both do. As we both played this mission, most of it.
Duncan apparently did not finish it, so he can help you along a little bit.
No, I got stuck on an objective.
Yeah,
Wow,
well, I
happens.
almost got stuck in a number of places, so I'm kind of curious which point you got stuck on.
Do you want to attack that? I could just mention that real quick now. I got stuck trying to find the plaza in the City of Plazas.
Okay, so yeah, it was you had to go around this corner into this entrance that kind of looked like it was inside of a building, and that was it.
Was there like a big circle in the middle of that?
Yes.
Or okay, that didn't work for me. So the mission was.
You had to go like right up to the door.
Oh, okay. Then I might have. Yeah, I just didn't hit it then.
Well,
I worked in is. Yeah.
Was
So
a
anyway,
size 0 reach marker or something like that?
It was not a big reach
Relatively
marker. I had to
yeah.
really get up close to the door to trigger it.
Yeah, he didn't actually put a reach marker there when I played through, but he's updated it since, so that shouldn't be a problem anymore.
Okay, so this is a follow-up to a mission that we actually played through a while back, which is the 3 stars. And to give a small recap, this was the one where there's this arranged wedding between this princess and this warlord. And the gist of the result of all that, because it was a very long and very dialogue-heavy mission, was that there's the princess pretends to take off, kind of throw everybody off the scent so she can get away, because she's kind of fallen for a Starfleet officer on Starbase Magellan. This causes the king to run off after her, where she thinks she is, and then the warlord basically kind of turns the tables and says, "Haha, I'm just playing you all," and goes after to kidnap her. And so it picks up more or less where it left off, and you basically go after this transport, or so you're going after the ship that the king went on, that was going after the transport that they thought the princess was on, but turned out she was back on Starbase Magellan. It just kind of made one think she had taken off.
The princess is in another castle routine, huh?
Yeah, except that she was already in the same castle, just hiding.
Beat me to it.
Yeah. So we already had the princess. We were just trying to figure out. Oh, basically, pick up the pieces.
Yeah. So, you're basically chasing after the warlord, and when you get there, you find the transport that the ship the king was aboard. Find that destroyed, and you find an impulse trail which suggests that the ship the king was on kind of was in a battle and then kind of fled into this nebula nearby. So you go in there into the nebula, and you find the ship. You beam aboard. You kind of help defend some raiders, but get everybody out before it explodes. You find out that they basically launched or got the king off the ship in a shuttlecraft. So after you rescue everyone off of that, you go to this another planet that they've got in this little coalition of theirs.
So it's an allied planet of the king. So one of the other princesses who had a magic power stone with potential preserver in origin. Yeah.
So it's basically kind of like preserver's star charts and these gems that these 3 royal princesses have.
Yeah. So it's at that point, our objective is basically to find out where that ship is, find out local survivors, and we beam down to the planet, meet with the royals, and basically start our investigations.
Yeah, so you run around kind of looking for clues. Everyone seems friendly, but everyone you ask about is acting a little weird about it. You find the runabout that they escaped in, but no sign of them. So you finally meet up with this princess who's got the second stone and is basically the ruler of this planet. So you go to her throne room, and basically she reveals that in order to kind of keep the warlord from coming after her planet, she's made a deal with him, and so he shows up with a ton of his guards, captures you and your crew and the princess from that tried to escape earlier, and so you all get captured. They throw you in the or try to throw you in the in a cell, and you manage to escape, break everybody out, go back, save the princess. The good one, not the bad one.
Yeah.
Because there are multiple princesses in this. But the warlord gets away. You get out, and you're basically kind of like trying to escape his troops and get back to the main plaza. And this is the point where you, Duncan, kind of
I
got
fought
stuck.
the battle mage. Yeah, I fought the battle mages, and then I wasn't able to proceed.
So yeah, once you go through the door, you're basically then out into the main plaza, and you have to like shut down like 9 of these transport inhibitors and free like 3 groups of citizens that they've rounded up. You confront the war. You beat them. You confront the warlord, basically in front of the palace, and he takes off and takes the not nice princess, basically the leader of this planet, and takes off with her and the second necklace or second stone. And you basically do a battle in space. He kind of keeps sending ships after you to kind of so he can escape. So he takes off. You fight a few battles in space, and it more or less wraps up there. And it's basically like we've got to find this whatever the secret is in these stones. You have scans of the second stone that the native people had in their databases. So you're able to pull the map from that, and it's basically setting it up so that the third part will be going after this third stone.
Yeah. So, overall thoughts?
It is a very, very long mission. I think it's like it was like an hour and a half, an hour 45 minutes when I was finally done.
Yeah, and for me going through it, I was already pushing quite a long ways when I caught out, and it was kind of when I was playing through, it felt like just by the time we got the mission, like the ship, we basically rescued the ship and did all those operations. It already kind of felt like a full mission. So, I mean, it would have been short if if a mission ended there, but it's like I would always kind of got a feeling of like, okay, and then we're moving on to a climax, right? It was just more intro.
Yeah, I think that was his Act 1.
Yeah, so it was kind of like that Act 1, especially for it. What like by the point I left off, that wasn't picked up at all, because I kind of noticed when going through the dungeons, there was a room full of Starfleet officers on tables. That had no interaction. So it seemed like he kind of
things that you'd expect there to be a purpose for it there, not just
he built it, and I don't know if he just sort of had to drop it for story reasons, but it seemed like there was a thread that just sort of ended, and then we had another mission on top of that, which was a lot like I liked it a lot better for just the politics, the story, but it felt like that got squished, but at the same time was still a full mission. And
I was keeping count, and he used all 15 maps. He maxed out maps.
Holy crap.
I actually have to wonder if maybe that plot thread you were talking about, he just forgot about it halfway through writing the mission and just never got around to finishing it.
I don't know that there was ever a plot thread there. I think it was just something he added for set dressing.
Yeah, and it was just like, especially with how involved that was too, with the ship rescue. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's when something I would do when the mission would be about that ship. But if it's just sort of like a staging point from getting A to B, we didn't even have to board it. I mean, that could have all been handled via dialogue prompt, like just saying, hey, we took damage, but here's a lead going this way. The king tried to escape, and then he's on this planet. They should be able to help you out, no problem, because we're ostensibly allies. Yeah, and that would have freed up a lot of mission time.
And there's a couple of places where there's just like really short, like for instance, leaving Starbase Magellan. The only thing you do there is warp out.
And even when I had to do, like for Apex, I had to do that scene of warping out from Starbase Magellan. I made it a full map transition. So I made Starbase Magellan just something that completely just gets transitioned out, and then we go to the next planet.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, I mean, I can see the arc in the story is fine. I mean, he's hitting all the beats generally where he should. It's just, it's long and it's involved and it's a lot of talking and a lot of...
Yeah, and like one thing that I kind of hit on was that when we go through the big confrontation where the Federation officer is, being tortured by the main villain, and then it's like, hey, you will do what I say or else he gets pain. It's like, I will resist you. Oh, no, there's pain.
Oh, and that one where you're just like standing there for like this entire exchange is like, I know. Why am I not butting in?
I was playing as my character based on David Sontak from Starfleet Security, who is, and with Jagoro right there. So it's like, we're the type of we're just going to punch people. Jagoro's going to go for the kneecaps. So, like, that is a great example of a scene that kind of needs to be structured in a different way to either have it make sense that the player's just kind of standing there, or just give the option that the player can just rush in.
Yeah, I mean, that it's an example of something that could be cut down to a much more meaningful length. But it just kind of drags out for too long, and it's
for like
kind of like that all over the place.
Like a quick dialogue back and forth, you just sort of get oriented, then boom, you're right in there, because it doesn't really add a whole lot to the characters to go through that. And there's definitely other ways that you could DJX Prime could use the time he spends there on other things, kind of like he did in Part 1. So Part 1 had sort of like, it was long, but he used the time to develop a lot more with the backstories of the factions, the character relationships, that sort of thing. This one, there's so much time is being spent on this other stuff that kind of gets drowned out a little bit. So when there's those moments, they kind of almost seemed a little rushed, so you don't get as much. So you're going through these longer scenes, but because they're having to really kind of just keep this, keep the story going in spite of all else.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of places where they
wasn't as much of the really good stuff.
For instance, he could have done
in some areas.
I'm sorry, we keep talking over each other.
You two need to learn to share.
Well, the problem is that because of the like a small delay between talking and the rest of us hearing, so we keep pausing and trying to start at the same time.
Oh, you mean like me and Duncan earlier?
So I was going to say
that there was evidence that we're unprofessionals. Non-professionals.
We can't see each other. Right.
and we're doing it, obviously. Okay,
you mean people didn't already have enough evidence to come to that conclusion?
Exactly.
Duncan, you may have the football.
I don't want the football.
It's the talking football.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, definitely areas to squish down, especially things that don't really further what the core of the story is. So I don't think like going through the full ship rescue scene adds anything. It's well constructed, and it would make sense if the story was focused on the starship, the Fed Sovereign class. But it isn't. So that takes up like 2 or 3 map transitions. Just to kind of go through those mechanical scenes of saving the ship. When that doesn't need to be part of the story. Because you could just easily write that out saying the ship is fine. The ship being damaged doesn't like add to the characters, doesn't add to the villains, doesn't add to the setting. For me, it kind of spoiled things a little bit because there's the main enemy faction borders on board the ship. So it's like, yeah, obviously the bad guys are involved here. It was kind of like a little heavy-handed foreshadowing. So it's just like, I mean, it's something you can go through a lot more quickly.
So, I mean, I think there's a number of places where he could condense. So on the ship, for instance, you start out on the bridge, and then map transition down to a lower deck. I think he could have consolidated that down to a single deck. That would have consolidated there. I think he could have, if he had done just like an in-map transition going from Starbase Magellan to the Nebula, that would have been fine. There's not a lot to the Nebula, so that wouldn't be hard. There, where you're running through the part where you're running through the streets and then go into the plaza, I think he could have seriously stood to consolidate that down to one map, and make that in general just a little less involved.
Because it felt like. Go. Okay. I will say real quick. It felt like where I got stuck. I thought the next point was going to be beaming out. I didn't anticipate there being a whole nother section there.
Yeah.
So it could be possible to end it at the plaza.
Yeah, and it
depending on story.
I think the plaza is fine. I think okay, so I mentioned this before. You had to basically destroy 9 transport inhibitors that were all guarded. That is a lot of work. And then on top of it, free 3 groups of people. So you're talking 12 total interactions before you can bring down reinforcements from your ship.
Yeah, 9 objectives, I'm just going to say as a rule of thumb, that just does not work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm even just thinking of any, like, as just general blanket recommendation for authors, don't do that many objectives.
Yeah, I mean,
even if
just
they're like,
keep going.
See, now you two are just too self-conscious to even get through a whole.
That's the thing is, I want Duncan to interrupt because I want to hear his thoughts.
Okay, so yeah, as general rule, like even if there's like 9 things on a single table, don't do it. Yeah, just don't do 9. Like anything else, like beyond that is it's always up to debate. But I think 9 is clearly in excess for any type of objective, including giant fleet battle. That's just way too much to clean up as one objective. So definitely, I mean, I would be fine with, depending on what that next map is, like cutting it out just completely and just ending things on that B map point. I think it's fine. Like if we get to the plaza, there's Federation reinforcements, we take care of the situation beam out. I think that would work for the story. So yeah, it's
the plaza is kind of the climax. So I don't know that it would need to be cut, but it could be streamlined and it could be combined with the earlier map. So you escape from the prison to somewhere somewhat close to the plaza.
Yeah. That would work. And I would also say when we're doing the Nebula stuff, that's kind of like a personal pet peeve of mine for Foundry missions, is that when we have to do extended navigation sections with the disable effect where we don't get shields or full impulse, I just honestly find that frustrating. And
it's funny you should mention that.
Uh-oh.
Because
are we talking about part 3?
No, I'm talking about the Nebula. It's I found that really annoying for a different reason because it hides the minimap, and you have no indication of where the reach markers are. And so I would fly around trying to find reach markers.
You can still do the whole scan for targets thing.
But that doesn't really
don't work on reach markers.
Yeah, those don't work on reach markers.
Yeah, so, if it works for that type of objective.
I always had to trust that objective was just going to be in front. And it's just basically like, okay, I'm just going to try to play it like I already know where I'm going.
there was at least one instance where I actually had to fly out of the nebula, confirm where the reach marker was, and fly back in.
Yeah. So I think nebula navigation doesn't necessarily. I would just say for authors, be very conscious about how you use that effect, and keep in mind is that sort of like hide and seek isn't necessarily going to add to your audience's experience. So I guess I just want to reinforce in summary, like for what we're talking about now, there's a lot that could be changed with this mission, but I still had fun with it. So it's definitely not a bad one, and one I would recommend, but I would also recommend that would need a big revamp. Kind of like I've done on previous missions, but like of mine too. I've gone through and made big changes. And these are kind of relatively simple ones. He doesn't necessarily need to change anything big with the plot. It's just basically cutting things and restructuring things and working things like that. And I'm excited for part 3. And I'll definitely be going back to this one once I can put the time off, and maybe after GXJ make some changes. But yeah, so it's one of those ones where I liked it, but there was a lot of things as an author that I would have done differently.
I actually still ended up giving it 4 stars.
Yeah, I did the same.
Despite it all, it's a good story. It's interesting characters. The maps are great.
Oh yeah. The interior of the interior of the palace, yeah. That was fantastic. I mean, that was just a great use of ceiling detail. Because he built ceiling detail, these like large struts, out of boxes and crates built in serial. So that took a huge amount of relatively large amount of assets to get done. But the result was great, especially with how he proportioned it. The view was good. Some of the side detail was a little sparse, but it was just a great view getting in there. And he built a dome out of something that looked like it was just like this glassed-in dome above you with crates and curved struts. So there are some great builds on this one. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars, and definitely a lot of great building, a lot of great character work. But there's some sort of stuff on the high end for plot pacing and objectives that can definitely use some tweaking.
I don't know, Pax, that would be a bad bet, because he's released 2 parts in the span that I have been working on part 3.
I've already done 9 Starfleet security missions between 2 and 3.
We have, Dragoon is not the fastest builder of missions. It is known.
But it will be glorious. It will be the moment of when part 3 gets out, it's going to be maybe the biggest event we ever have in the Foundry.
Yes.
Even
we're
this is a
mission. We're going to
don't take that as
party, for one thing.
Yeah. Special graphics on round tab.
Which I'll have to design.
Or we could just use some of the celebration stuff. So reuse some of the stuff for the anniversary episodes. Yeah, I mean, no big pressure on you.
Basically, what we're talking about here is once he's done with his work, he gets more work to do.
That is how it works, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is exactly how it works. All right, so Mark, you also had a review for us tonight.
Yes.
Actually, a mission that several of us have played a long time ago. But.
Yeah, the Honor and Delivery mission. It's a KDF mission on the Top 3 system. This is a mission that it's kind of interesting because it's an old mission, and it's set during the old Klingon Wars phase of the game, before the Feds and the Klingons stopped trying to kill each other. The interesting thing with this one, though, is that it actually, while you do some really, really weird things in it, it actually does have, pretty good reasons for it. Sort of. At least, what Klingons would think of as good reasons to do such things.
We need pizza.
Well, I mean, it's not so much getting pizza because, let's face it, even Klingons are smart enough to figure out how to make pizza. Or at the very least, they could pay someone to do it. I mean,
Oh yeah.
But if I remember this mission correctly, the idea is you're supposed to deliver this pizza, right?
Yeah, it's
KDF ambassador who spent a lot of time on Earth before the Klingon War started, had developed a fondness for pizzas made at a certain restaurant, and he wanted to have another one because no other pizza tasted quite so good. So he decides he wants another one, and Worf, being the kind soul that he is, contacts you and tasks you with the mission because Worf doesn't have a ship of his own. So you get to go to Earth to acquire the pizza for this elderly Klingon gentleman who is laying on his deathbed. Yeah, that's a rather interesting premise for a mission.
It certainly is.
Yeah, and
Woody Valley just logged on. Cool.
We happen to be
message
talking
him.
about his mission.
Yeah, just send him a PM. Hey, we're talking about honor and delivery. We're being very judgmental. No.
The only thing that I remember being sort of wrong with this mission, or something I didn't like, was there was a time skip in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Where like a week is supposed to have gone by, and I was like, wait a minute, what?
Why? That part didn't make sense.
It was just kind of like, wasn't it like you were just sort of like getting to DS9 after going through a lot of miscellaneous?
It's because you have to find a smuggler or something, right?
Yeah.
You have to find a person who knows how to bypass Sol's planetary defense grids.
Yeah.
So you can get to the planet without being attacked by dozens of ships.
That's right.
And that was an interesting section because it was, in addition to sort of doing an old style of conversation that we don't really do anymore, we're just like how to set up player dialogue responses. It was basically you had to sort of trick a guy, so it was a puzzle through a dialogue interaction. So it wasn't like you had to fit it was puzzle through dialogue, not like, you had to fix something or just work your way through a set of mechanical interactions, but you just had to literally trick a guy. And he wouldn't respond the right way if you did it the wrong way. So that would send you back to the beginning. So that was pretty interesting.
Yes. I actually had to do that dialogue puzzle 2 or 3 times because...
Yeah.
I do prefer a dialogue puzzle where you can sort of brute force your way through it.
It's not one of the more straightforward dialogue puzzles I've ever seen. Because you have to figure out what would tip the guy off to the fact that you want this information for, shall we say, less than wholesome reasons.
Yeah. So the one thing I'll also say about this one, since I did play this relatively recently too, is that it was made by PodcastUGC. So there was a lot of sort of inside jokes and character references.
Mm-hmm. And including characters essentially based on
hosts,
Foundry authors.
Oh, so some of them are actually named after and made to look like characters of.
Yes, indeed.
So I want to say that
not me personally, but
I want to say that it was originally based off of like a joke that was said on the podcast.
Probably.
So it was our equivalent of doing the or what we did for the Captain Proton section. So something that was on the show, they made a mission about it, and it got to the point of being published.
Well, the most interesting part there is that where you see them pop up is when you're inside the restaurant and you go through and you're like, all right, all of you people who are currently inside the restaurant, you go sit on the floor over there. That's the part where you see them, is because if you actually look at the names of all of the people who you tell to go sit on the other side of the room, one of them's Helna, and then you have 2 or 3 that are named after Foundry authors.
Yeah.
So I remember that restaurant as being a pretty neat build.
Yes.
It was pretty neat. I would call it a little Spartan by my standards, but I mean, it was a very serviceable build.
There's a lot of things that are Spartan by your standards, though.
Yeah, well,
this is true.
The outdoor map was just like a bunch of buildings and then the default backdrop.
The outdoor map, he didn't build it. He didn't.
Oh, that was default?
It's
okay.
Vega.
Well, the old Vega. The old Vega, which I'm not too familiar with because I primarily know the revamped one. Because I never had that, I've never used that one in the Foundry.
Yeah. See, because he chose that one because Vega Colony, this is the STF version, mind you, not the...
oh, okay, yeah, then I
one.
never played that version.
Both versions of the map have a pre-built patio with a bunch of furniture, like it's an outdoor cafe.
You can still change the lighting.
This is true, but it's a relatively minor thing compared to grabbing a pre-built map that has a restaurant with a patio seating already.
Hey, sometimes default maps, they do everything you need.
But see, that's why he chose the Vega map, I think, is because of the fact that he wanted to do this and this and this. Like, so you have a Federation colony, all the Federation themed buildings, you have a bunch of patio furniture, and a building to have your restaurant in.
Yeah, so it worked. Yeah, so the plot from there is that you get the pizza, you
have to go
fight
through
the
like
hostage
situation, right?
Yeah, you get in a hostage situation that's resolved internally by making pizza, but the feds on the outside still say, well, you're not going to get out of here unless you surrender. You say, screw that, and you fight your way out. And
that was the one thing on the mission that I would really, really like for him to change, is that when I left the building, I basically got spawn camped.
Yeah.
That can be an issue sometimes. I mean, if you put mobs right on top of where the player spawns.
Also, the mobs you fought as you're leaving the restaurant got progressively weaker rather than harder, which is a bit odd. Because you'd think that like the first people to show up would be just like whoever just happened to be closest and not necessarily the toughest and whatever. It's a minor quibble though.
Yeah.
Well, the spawn camp thing that gets kind of annoying because they're literally standing next to the spawn point.
Yep.
Keep shooting.
I mean, I managed to kill half of them before I went down the first time, and the rest of them followed soon after. But that was really the only actual difficult thing that I ended up doing in the mission.
So, and at that point, we get the pizza, and then we bring it back. And if I recall correctly, the person who sent us on the mission, he died midway through, correct?
Well, sort of, yeah. Because, like I said, the guy was on his deathbed, and he wanted one of these things before he died. And unfortunately, that he didn't have as much time as he needed.
Mm-hmm. So we got the pizza, but it was bittersweet.
You end up like sharing the pizza with his daughter or something.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the things I noticed about it, that the way that room where you talked to him and his daughter was decorated. At first glance, it just looks like a rather disorganized mess of a build. But when you stop and think about the backstory behind the character, it actually kind of makes sense. Because, well, one thing I noticed about the room is that when you look around, it has a variety of different themes to the decorations. I mean, you literally have what is apparently a Cardassian replicator console on one of the walls, a Federation-themed bed that the guy's laying in, and so on.
Or some of that is probably a product of that we don't have a Klingon replicator and we don't have a Klingon bed asset.
Well, but thematically, though, when the mission states that the guy is basically broke, and that's part of the reason why he needed help getting the pizza was because he doesn't have the resources needed to attempt to get a pizza for himself.
Actually, I'm remembering something about this. The door to this mission is in like the slums of Kronos, right?
Yep.
In the back alleys. And I remember thinking that it's like, oh, this apartment map looks like it fits very well. It's like I just stepped right off the street.
Well. See, the basic gist I was getting at is that his apartment's interior is kind of, sort of, in universe, built out of random junk.
Yeah. It was like it was very fitting for that slum area.
So, okay, having a Cardassian replicator console on Kronos rather than a Klingon belt one, it seems weird, but, hey.
It can be interpreted as fitting the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, overall, it's an interesting time capsule. That's what it kind of felt to me.
And it had a good sense of fun about it.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever really took itself too seriously.
This is true. Yeah. It was definitely
which
kind
is
of
fun
like
sometimes.
a lighthearted, tongue-in-cheek sort of thing.
Yeah.
I sent a PM to Woody Valley, but he didn't actually reply.
Can tell him this will be up on YouTube before too long.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. The one more thing we wanted to do tonight. So Dragoon, if you want to enter the Foundry,
I need someone. I kind of already built the thing. I set it up. So if we want to, I can just screen share on mine.
Okay, share your screen.
Okay. I just have to change the name of a couple NPCs because otherwise it will horribly spoil SSF. Okay.
as long as we're thinking about the same thing, as I was wanting to show off the Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah, I've already built one. So
okay.
I was just figuring okay, which mission do I want to, do I need a Federation transport? Boom. Okay. So share screens. There we go. Start. There we go.
Okay.
And there she is.
Yay. So we can go over a few of the options we got for this one. We have the Kobayashi Maru in the Foundry. And there's some customization to it. Not much. So we can go ahead and start off with, we've got the different hull patterns. We've got the Type 8s, 1 through 5, Fleet 2 for some reason, and then Veteran. So those are the skins we've got access to. And we can play around with those in a minute. But the major point of customization on this one is the nacelles. We just got the two different styles. So we got the lit up ones, and then we've got the classic closed nacelles, or the unlit ones. So we've got the cargo pods in full. It's labeled as Fed Miranda class. So if you look on the list, we got two. So one is the Miranda, one is the Kobayashi Maru. The one on the bottom is the Kobayashi Maru. It's number 2. Number 1, standard Miranda.
So I secretly suspect that this might be a prelude to them actually releasing it as a playable skin for the Miranda.
Because we do tend to get the playable ships in the costume creator.
Yeah.
In fact, we almost exclusively get the playable ships in the costume creator.
And this is hooked up with customization options too. So
yeah. So
they're named.
So it could be what you call a Foundry leak.
Unless it's just like Thomas put it here.
Oh, speaking of Foundry leaks, there was another one I found. The Vorgon ship.
Oh, yeah, that one's actually been out there for a little bit though. But yeah, there's the last Vorgon ship that we don't have is available.
It's a cruiser, right?
Yeah, it's I
mean, it's not hard to extrapolate that could be next year's summer ship.
I was actually thinking it was going to be this year's before they announced the that was going to be the
carrier.
Well, it was originally battlecruiser. So Vorgon, this is the Tajira, right? The Tajara. So here's the Tajara. So this is what I thought we're going to get this year as a carrier, but apparently we got the other one. Mm-hmm. So this one's got standard customization options for a Vorgon ship. And let's see. Yeah, we don't.
Is it the one that's even bigger and fatter than the one we got this year?
Yeah, this one's a little bit more broad. Yeah, a little bit more unusual.
Pieces on it.
It kind of feels like a Dreadnought cruiser to me. Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's not that big though.
Yeah, I was actually thinking this was more carrier-ish than the other one. That's why I was thinking, like, oh, the one I like isn't going to be this year. And
so far we have a tactical commander, an engineering commander / full carrier. So what's this one going to be? Who knows? Maybe this one was going to be like a full-blown science ship or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. It's a little out there, so maybe science battle cruiser, depending on scale.
Perhaps.
So, yes, we got this guy, and I mean,
whatever it is, it'll probably have a science commander.
Yeah. So the this is
the the big next question though is what's the next winter ship going to be? Have we run out of Breen designs?
No, because we still need a T6 version of the Raider.
Yeah, the Escort.
That's true. Yes.
And it would fit the pattern because we haven't gotten a Escort ship since the last summer event.
Not sure what else cold themed you could come up with though, if you wanted to stop doing Breen ships.
Andorran
ships. They could keep doing Breen ships. You know what? That's actually an amusing thought. Is do one where instead of it being a single ship unlock, it's a pseudo faction unlock, kind of like they did with those like the Farace and Cation escorts.
Horian says they could switch to Andorians.
It's just that
they could do some cross-faction Andorian ships.
Yeah, it would be tough to do. Like that was just what I was thinking for the Andorians, though, because we already have C-Store fed Andorian ships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know for faction recognition, because Cryptic does make a point of this, whether or not they would ever make an Andorian ship because we've already got one established for this
event ship. Yeah. Well, see, that's why I was thinking that if they were going to make that as an event, they would make it like a cross-faction 3-pack for an event, but that seems like an awful lot of work for an event thing.
I could see them doing, like, they've got the event ship, and then, well, this would be more of an anniversary thing, though, because they don't do this for the winter one. But then they could have, like, a Klingon ship that has something to do with Repente. They could do something thematic with an Andorian ship, but I just don't know if they could do a faction one. I've been thinking about this a little more. I just don't know what else we've really got.
To be honest, I think that if it comes to it, they're probably going to just make new Breen ships.
Or they could just do something like just a completely different faction. Because, I mean, the Vorgon ships
come up with something completely new.
Yeah, because the Vorgon ships they're somewhat aquatic, but they don't scream summer event in the same way that the Ryzen ships do.
Well, the Vorgon connection is because they, were in that episode where Picard goes to Ryzen.
The only time I actually saw Vorgons in person in Star Trek was on Ryzen.
There we go. Okay.
That's the connection there.
Yeah, it's just in Stowe. It's kind of but anyway, though, they could just do something else. I mean, that's kind of an option that's available to Cryptic, is that if they ever need to do something else, they don't necessarily have to do something that's super cold related.
One thing that they could easily do for the Breen ships is to go back over all of the different things and do different T6 versions of all of the Breen ships that simply have a different spec seating.
Yeah, they could. It's that they want to make stuff that people are going to participate with the event for. So if a player already has it, but just
I've seen some players who say, I really like X ship, but I wish it had different BOF seating.
Yeah, that happens a lot on the forum.
Yeah, it happens a lot, but I think Cryptic would, they would need to do a whole new skin too.
Of course,
and they certainly might, yeah.
But also, they give it a new starship trait. Every single one of the T6 Breen ships has had its own unique starship trait.
So new trade, new skin, and then it could just be like something that would also unlock that skin option if you happen to use the other one too. That could work.
Like for example, I'm actually wondering if maybe the new upcoming one is going to have pilot seating.
Could be,
because they've made several ships with that recently.
We will have a new specialization by that point, though. So it could be a miracle worker ship.
This is true, yes. The Breen ships could have that, because that's actually one of the things with the Breen ships is that they range from, with the exception of the frigate / escort thingy. Well, actually, it's a raider. It's not even an escort. It's later than an escort. Except for that one, all of them are rather bulky, beefy ships.
I know. I think this is going to be the last year we have a Breen ship for the winter event. I don't know what they'll do next, but
they'll figure out something.
I think they can. I think they can only ride the Breen for so long, and they've pushed limits.
So I'm thinking about the Kobayashi Maru here that we're looking at, and the 26th Century Challenge, and I'm thinking about a mission where, okay, so the idea is that you got this fleet, they're off in another galaxy, they can't exactly go back to Earth easily, it's not just, flip a switch and you're back at Earth. Mm-hmm. So resources are going to be a big issue for the fleet. So maybe they've brought some tankers along with them, and they happen to, the only thing they could rustle up were some old Kobayashi Maru style ones. Could lead to many, many jokes about, oh God, why are we still using Miranda hulls?
Hulls are...
It's actually been a long time staple of science fiction, having starships that are optimized for things other than combat, such as, like asteroid mining, deep space manufacturing, stuff like that.
Yeah, and you can have these two involved in, like, what if, we start, like, one of the things that the fleet does when they arrive in Centaurus A is to set up sort of like a forward station colony. So that was going to need a little bit of infrastructure, too. So these could be helping with that.
They could be.
I just saw something. There was this one TV show a long time ago where the bad guy in the TV show didn't have a planet as a base of operations. He had a giant factory ship as his base of operations. And to beat the guy, they had to blow up his factory ship. Which was this enormous thing that would make ESD look like a toy, basically.
You could turn that around and have the Enterprise J be able to build things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as big as it is,
but maybe it needs resources to do that. So you got to send out these guys, the Kobayashi Maru style, to gather resources, and maybe the player ship could go along on one of these.
Like tow an asteroid back to the J, and then the J takes the mass of the asteroid and reconfigures it into something useful.
Good, yeah.
There was actually an interesting discussion that came up over this week on the forum is, how do replicators work?
Magic.
Well, one question that came up is whether or not they actually involve converting mass to energy and vice versa. And personally, after thinking about what we've seen them do in the TV show, I've come to the conclusion that the answer is no.
I kind of always took it as basically an extension of transporter technology.
Well, right, because you remember the episode of Voyager where the Kazon killed themselves trying to install a replicator?
Mm-hmm.
One thing, a thought that occurred to me while I was having this discussion is maybe the reason it killed them is because the replicator wasn't correctly programmed to know where to get the mass that it was supposed to be using to make things. So it was ripping random pieces out of the Kazons that installed it.
Yeah, and I kind of like having a little bit of more limitation to the replicators, because there was an article posted online about how the Trek writers viewed replicators in Star Trek, and it's just like it took a lot of agency out of the shows.
Mm-hmm. If you have a technology that can just make anything,
yeah, so making it
it's like that solves every problem.
Well, one of the suggested explanations for why you cannot replicate latinum is that replicators cannot change the elements that things are made out of. They can only rearrange them.
Yeah, I think just like putting as much limitation on replicators as possible, kind of like making them a little bit more like the auto docks and auto kitchens in Ring World. I think it's because they're doing something physical. It's not just matter to energy, like energy to matter conversion, because that's just too good.
Well, another thing
remember
that's interesting is that while the Federation has the ability to synthesize dilithium in TNG era, you'll note that they never do it on board the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
Even in situations where it would be really, really useful.
Wait, when do they replicate dilithium?
They don't ever show them doing it in the TV show. They mention sometime in TNG that the Federation has developed the ability to artificially synthesize dilithium. But they never show how it's done.
I think they mentioned that they can recrystallize dilithium, but I don't think they ever say they can replicate it. Because they have dilithium mines.
Yeah, they did. It was recrystallizing dilithium.
Oh,
I think. That's
because that was with the Scotty episode where he's all worried that they're going to fracture their dilithium crystals, and Geordi's like, "No, we just recrystallize it."
I thought,
but I don't think they can replicate it.
A line. Well, see, it's not replication though. Yeah, the Federation uses some other method to do it, and they never really show exactly how it works. They just mention that they no longer need to worry about having a supply of it as much as they did in TOS, because in TOS era, the Federation's need for dilithium was so great that they were actually willing to fight the Klingons over it.
Yeah, and Cordon had big issues too with its dilithium mines.
And the plot point was that they'd come up with some other way of doing it, but apparently that other way wasn't replicator technology. It was some other tech that actually had the ability to change what elements something is made out of.
So
I don't know. I'm not recalling this.
Yeah, it was just saying that, hey, we don't really need to worry about.
Where was this mentioned?
It was one of those.
No, we totally got it. We totally got it down with the Scott. It was the Scotty episode. It's just that they have to they just recrystallize it.
Yeah, but they never say that dilithium isn't a resource that they have to.
Yeah, that's just the extent of it.
Okay, so I don't interpret that as they never need dilithium. I interpret that as they basically can try to repair damage.
It probably still has like
crystals.
a lifespan, where you
at a certain point you can't recrystallize it has considerable value still, because it's apparently expensive to manufacture. It's just that
I don't think it's manufactured. I think it's just maintained.
Yeah, it's easier.
And of course, once we get to
I'm looking it up.
The 25th century, it has become
because that's what Remus
does.
Is isn't it dilithium mine?
Yeah, it was a dilithium mine.
Yeah.
Well, the thought I had in my head was that even with the ability to artificially synthesize it, it was still so difficult to synthesize that it was.
No, I don't think they're synthesizing. I don't think that's what that meant.
Yeah, I don't think it's synthesizing. It's just basically when they're using it, they can get a lot more out of it. So they can basically just. It's kind of like the justification for this sort of the original idea behind the Enterprise D of being a generational, really long distance ship. This is part of how the Fed does it.
Yeah.
Those ships can run a lot longer with the dilithium they have. But for every new ship they build, they've got to get more.
Bringing it around to the 26th century thing is that, maybe there are different resources that the 26th century ships might need, that a player could structure a mission around trying to find some.
Yeah. Because, we got stuff like Trillium D came up in Enterprise, so we can do something very equivalent to that.
I was going to ask, though, how does the player get back to, or what does the player, happens to the player between missions of the 26th Century Anthology?
I was kind of planning they would still be out there.
I don't know, Dragoon. What happens to players between the episodes of Shadows of Midas?
Well, those are meant to happen chronologically next to each other.
Yeah, and so are these.
Well, it's kind of like they
and they will once they get the third part out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was kind of thinking that they were just going to be hanging out with the fleet, so you just basically regroup with the Enterprise J. You don't necessarily go back to the Milky Way.
Even though
it's
they
just
will.
basically eventually they will.
That is a game mechanic that is not we're not able to overcome.
Yeah, so I would just say that basically in between missions, I mean, we go back, we're in the Tenebia in 25th century. But the way I was implicitly writing missions is that the player was still part of the expedition.
Well, I think they I think they should be. I'm just saying that I was planning at the very. I think I mentioned earlier. I thought there was like one aspect that I wanted to throw in at the tail end that related to the 25th versus 26th century, and that was basically if you're from the 25th century, either the Enterprise J opens up a temporal portal that you can get back and forth between the expedition and the 25th century, so you're not like permanently like trapped in the 26th century. You can still go back and come forth.
I would say that might be a little complicated to work out because
yeah, so I think it's more, and it gives it a little bit more jeopardy if the fleet can't like travel back and forth at all.
Yeah, and I think it's fine if this is just sort of like an extended mission. It was just like I'm just thinking from my own, like in thinking about how I would write one of these missions.
So let's say for roleplay, if we're role-playing 26th century, we can say this is their primary mission. I mean, there's going to be the players are going to go do something, but within the role play, that is their mission, so they stay there. But if they're 25th century, maybe we can have who's he face?
Maybe, but I think it would be fine if this would be also just an extended mission for 25th century.
Okay, I looked that thing up and I found what you guys were talking about with the dilithium. Because apparently in TOS, part of the reason why dilithium was so heavily coveted was not the general scarcity of it, but it would actually slowly disintegrate while they were using it in starships and eventually just crumble.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't undo that. They had to literally replace the dilithium crystals with freshly mined ones.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would work both ways. I personally think that it would be fun to have the player in this, just a longer set of 25th century missions. Because, I mean, the idea is that it's going to be a single mission. Once they reach the finale, 25th century players are going to go back. So maybe they're in this for a few months.
Ooh, and you know what? That's an idea set. What sort of resource shortages do you think they would have as a reasonably
yeah, see, that's what I was talking about
not
earlier.
an insurmountable obstacle, but something that's worth working towards.
It's something that a player could do a mission about.
Yeah.
So who's the temporal captain from the temporal?
Captain Walker. Captain Walker is.
So maybe we can just throw away something where he shows up at the very end for 25th century captains. It says,
we've
there
got
you
a
are.
temporal agent.
Oh yeah, we do have Ross. yeah, we've got Ross.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't we just use that annoying guy who keeps hailing you for no reason whatsoever?
Ross is more annoying.
Well, I mean, whoever it is, we can just throw in something. Oh, there's this. I can give you this temporal beacon that allow you to move back and forth to this point in time in your own time.
Yeah.
So,
temporal
we're not
Philip Cray.
We're not trapping.
Yeah, just to give player the option. So it's just basically,
it doesn't have to be like some big.
This.
And then that kind of separates out from the 26th century ships, so they're not.
Yeah.
We're not like opening up a way for them to get home and get supplies.
At some point there has to be that sort of suspension of disbelief. I mean, your missions are a prime example of the Shadow of Midas ones because at the end of Part 1, you're trapped in the Gamma Quadrant, Delta Quadrant.
One of those.
We're trapped both times.
I think
both times. When the mission ends, I'm not actually trapped there. I'm back at the Alpha Quadrant or Beta Quadrant or wherever I started from. So there has to be that suspension of disbelief.
True, but I mean, those were intended to be played back to back to back.
And well, the thing is too, we've got the anthology. We'll have a bunch of missions to play that can be played back to back with each other. Mm-hmm. And I think like what I kind of like about the 25th century player being in that time is it sort of gives the same feeling of stuff going on behind the scenes that we get for the 26th century captain. So if we say want to talk about things, just like mention things offhand, like the player, someone makes a comment that the player doesn't, do anything with anyone else in the fleet, is sort of a recluse. I mean, that could also be like they go back in time too, but I mean, you could write it both ways, that the player even in the 25th century is a part of the fleet too, and their ship is getting material support from the other ships. I think that would work out just fine.
One of the things I was planning on doing was giving authors a sort of little boilerplate to put at the very front of their mission that says, "You are back in the 26th century and about to be given a mission for the fleet. Welcome back."
Yeah, and like for intro dialogue,
or something like that.
It is a lot easier to write intro dialogue when you know where the player is. And if you separate it, like if the player keeps having to come back forward from the 25th century,
I don't think you need to even call it out like in the individual missions. Just kind of say, just like an offhanded thing is like, this is how you're getting back and forth at the very end of the introduction, and then never talk about it again. Because beyond that point, we're kind of past the point where we're really trying to differentiate between the 25th and 26th centuries.
Yeah, these are things that we can do in the intro mission, and that authors won't necessarily have to worry about. But you probably do want a little note at the top of each mission that's says what's going on.
For me, it's just like if it's just something we're never going to bring up again, I wouldn't bring it up in the first place.
Well, we're bringing it up in the first place, so we never have to bring it up again.
Well, if that
makes any sense
too, I mean, Dax can just say, like, I think Dax is perfectly able to say, "Hey, if you're going to join us, we'll help you out too. You'll be part of the fleet." I think that brings the 25th century player in. If they're always having to go back and forth in time, they're not really part of this in the same way. So I think that distances a 25th century captain a lot more than a 26th century. That puts a very sort of.
I think
you might be overreading into it.
When each mission starts, it's just you're still part of that fleet. You're still there.
I mean,
it's not necessarily going back and forth. It's just you never left.
Yeah, that's
from the mission's perspective.
Yeah, that's how I would. That's how I'm planning on writing it, and also
you don't get back until we write a conclusion.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, that sort of that has a really nice flow and a really kind of nice way of writing player dialogue. That they're in this together, and I think just sort of keeping it to they're physically in this together too. I think kind of sets up some nice.
We do have to ask players to have that suspension of disbelief a little.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
but I think that's.
I wasn't thinking that this was going to be like some big thing. I think it was mostly just it's like a minor excuse. It's like throwing the players a bone. It is, and that's all I want it to be. I don't want it to be talked about or mentioned. I mean, write it exactly how the same way you're writing it. It's like one of those. Well, it's just a quick little bone to kind of get anyone off of our back because, like, well, how am I still in the 26th century?
Yeah. Well, it's just for me. It's this is how I approach most details in story writing because I do tend to think a lot of things out and try to use as much as possible and to try to take some like minor setting points seriously. And that's kind of actually how I've approached a lot of the player dialogue with SSF, of just actually being able to like just very subtly imply things about their relationship to the SSF team, and that's part of just is establishing where they where they fit, of just kind of being occasionally around. In this, we're kind of going to the flip side where they're always around for the 26th century option. So,
and these are the things that we can work out here, so that when it comes time for other authors to make missions for it, it's very, very simple for them.
Yeah. So I guess it's like if 25th century players, and this is something we can put out to the community, it's just kind of like if you're thinking about this, like, because I can easily think about this because we already kind of put this out there last time for players who are in the 26th century, how they kind of feel about this. I think this might be a good one to put out to the 25th century, of just like, how would you rather connect your 25th century character between missions? Are you thinking about your character coming back, or are you thinking about your character staying? And that can always be a choice. Even if we give the player the option to do this, it could be up to individual players to say, to think about using the device or not, too. So, yeah. I mean, it might just, even if we add it, I mean, anything's still possible.
This may just be one of those things we kind of table and kind of let everybody stew on it for a while.
Solution later. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely like chime in on the, you just either comments, Twitter, or
Our forum thread.
Yeah, the forum thread too. Just like how you imagine your 25th century character approaching this.
Well, we know we got authors that are already thinking about missions, and I'm sure they're thinking about how to structure it, and they may have ideas about all this. So
yeah, also players too. Even if you're not thinking about a mission, I mean, hopefully you're still playing the anthology. So, so definitely, let us know how you guys think about this one. Because I think it could, it could definitely work if we put it in there. I'd rather not, but it's something that would totally be fine either way.
So we're about at the end of our time limit here. So Dragoon, if you want to put up our contact info.
Okay. I lost the contact screen there for a sec. We can be reached by email at foundryroundtable@live.com. We are also on Twitter at foundryroundtab. Dragoon can be reached at Dragoon1701. Duncan can be reached at Gorgonups_SSF. Mark can be reached at Markhawkman. And I, of course, can be reached at Greendragoon. And yeah, I definitely want a second. We'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, I realize it's just us up here talking, but you guys are all kind of a part of this too. So
we
want to hear what you think.
The intro mission is ours, but after the intro mission is done, it becomes yours. So there we go. But for now, we will say good night.
Night.
Good night.